Good afternoon, I'm Anita Bathe. Here's a bit of what we have today on CBC Vancouver News.
You know, we're pretty frustrated. 7 months is a long time.
Pondering the town's uncertain future, wildfire victims in Lytton wonder how much longer they can wait to rebuild and if it'll ever be the same. Also, a former Whitecaps women's coach pleads guilty to sex assault. Meet the Canadian duo responsible for the music behind the Olympic skates of several nations.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Thanks for joining us. 7 months later, and people from the town of Lytton are still waiting for their fire-ravaged community to start rebuilding. As Brady Strachan reports, the flames burned pretty much all of the homes and businesses. And while governments have pledged to help, there hasn't been much progress.
Freshly fallen snow does little to mask the charred remains of Lytton. Apart from the snow, little has changed here since last summer's fire. It's a sore point for residents who had hoped by now rebuilding would be in full swing.
You know, we're pretty frustrated. 7 months is a long time.
With 90% of the town destroyed, this resiliency center is one of few places people can meet for a coffee.
You can't get your mail, you can't go to the doctor, you can't go to the pharmacy, you can't meet your friends. It's just a big empty pit down there right now, and you really worry about how long it's going to take to get people back.
Lytton's mayor refused an interview with CBC News, saying tensions are running high. Since the fire occurred, 3 people have taken and left the job of village recovery manager.
Unfortunately, you don't see a lot of things happening on the ground, but there's an awful lot happening in the background.
But the biggest roadblocks to recovery? All the town's records were destroyed when the village office burned down. And then there's the complex heritage permit process. The town sits on an ancient First Nation settlement, so no digging can begin without an archaeologist on site.
I think the reality is that, people are trying. It's just unprecedented events.
The clock is ticking, though. Insurance companies are eager to start the cleanup process as costs continue to mount.
The longer that these delays go on, we know that some insurance policies have limits, and these limits could be reached, so people could be exhausting their insurance coverage.
And even when rebuilding does begin,
I'm really worried people aren't going to come back. Too much time will go by, they'll get settled in other places.
A concern felt by many here as they wonder the uncertain future of Lytton. Brady Strachan, CBC News, Lytton, British Columbia.
And on that note, the BC NDP is promising to do more to fight climate change and help victims of natural disasters. All of this in the government's speech from the throne delivered today, outlining the political agenda for the coming months. So let's go live now to Mira Baines in Victoria at the BC Legislature for more on this. Mira, the province says it wants to put people first. What does that mean?
Well, that's right, Anita. That's what the government is saying. Now, the Lieutenant Governor's throne speech is just wrapping up behind me. Now, that was going on in the chamber, and they're just finishing up. The BC NDP government acknowledged that people in British Columbia have been facing challenging times, that families are stretched thin, and they're feeling exhausted. And they say that there is some relief coming in the coming months. They say they're going to be tackling with the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, the heat dome, and floods. And they outlined the vision for the government in the coming months. And so in this next legislative sitting, the BC NDP government will be taking a look at economic recovery, housing, affordability, as well as dealing with climate change. And I want you to take a listen to what Lieutenant Governor Janet Austin had to say.
To say the last year has been challenging would be an understatement. Extreme weather events claimed lives and devastated communities. And just when life was starting to return to some sense of normalcy, a new and highly contagious variant of COVID-19 began to spread. At a time when these same challenges have increased polarization and division around the world, people here in BC have pulled together.
I wanted to quickly go over some of the specifics that have been outlined. And in terms of putting people first, the BC government wants to try to tie minimum wage increases to the rate of inflation, introduce a cooling off period for real estate home purchases, and move forward on reconciliation by introducing an action plan and also modernizing the Royal BC Museum. So just some of the things that are coming up this legislative session.
Okay, Mira, and the budget is also coming up in a couple of weeks. Any hint of what's to come in there?
Well, Premier John Horgan will be discussing some of that. He'll be speaking very shortly after this speech. And basically, an economic recovery plan is on its way. So the government is promising more money to deal with the effects of the pandemic as well as extreme weather. Anita?
Mira Baines live for us today at the BC Legislature in Victoria. Thanks, Mira. A former Vancouver Whitecaps and Canadian national under-20 women's coach has pleaded guilty to 4 counts of sexual offenses. And as Anita Bathe reports, his plea comes after many delays and long after suspicions first came to light.
For 20 minutes, this soccer coach appeared over video before a North Vancouver provincial court judge, pleading guilty to 3 counts of sexual assault and 1 count of sexually touching a young person. And with that charge alone, Berarda could be in jail for at least 1 year or up to 14. The moment is a reflection of years of efforts from former soccer players to hold Berarda accountable. CBC News spoke to former Whitecaps players in the past.
I'm disgusted that another coach, behaved in this way and took advantage of the power dynamic between a coach and an athlete.
There's been such harm caused by the organization to so many people that are still coping and dealing with not only what they experienced as athletes, but in the aftermath of the, decades since then and trying to bring this to light.
The charges span 2 decades from 1988 to 2006 and involve 4 separate victims. Berarda was quietly let go from coaching duties in 2008 as a head coach for the under-20 women's national team and the Whitecaps women's team, but allegations of his wrongdoings followed. In February 2019, after a blog was published, more allegations came out on the former coach. Former Team Canada players alleged Berarda had sent sexualized text messages and made sexual comments to the players, touched players inappropriately, and used his position of power to make sexual advances. Fans staged major walkouts from the men's games to support the female players, and finally an investigation was launched by the Whitecaps.
Even in 2019, when we came forward, it took fan walkouts to even get them, 3 months later into a room with us.
Sentencing is expected to last 1 day and will happen later this year. Anita Bathe, CBC News, Vancouver.
In just 1 month, 3 Surrey seniors have lost a total of $139,000, falling victim to so-called grandson scams. In January alone, Mounties got 10 complaints, and out of those 10, 3 did actually hand over the money. The fraud usually includes a suspect calling a senior, pretending to be a police officer, lawyer, or the person's grandson. The suspect tells them the grandson has been arrested and requires bail money. In 2 of the 3 successful scams, someone showed up at the elderly person's home to collect the money. RCMP are encouraging people to protect the seniors in their lives, talk to them, educate them about the recent scams. An abandoned Greyhound station in Kamloops is being converted into a homeless shelter. That's where the station used to be, but it will soon become Merritt Place Shelter. It is set to open this weekend and will run until March of next year. It's operated by the Kamloops chapter of the Canadian Mental Health Association. The shelter will be able to house 50 people using sleeping pods to increase the privacy of guests. They will have to take on residents from other temporary shelters as well as they soon close. Well, if you're an avid follower of the Winter Olympics, chances are you own a pair of Hudson's Bay Team Canada red mittens, among some other collector's items. But Canada has since found a new Olympic retailer in Lululemon, and their line of Olympic apparel comes with a hefty new price tag and mixed reaction.
$48? You must be kidding.
Yeah, I think the differences in quality and just brand kind of elevated too. So yeah, I mean, it is inaccessible for most of the public, but I kind of get it.
If price is an issue, but then again, it's probably a collector's item and something that people will keep for a very long time.
Lululemon's Olympic mittens cost $68 a pair. By comparison, Hudson's Bay priced theirs at $10 to $12. Lululemon says they're committed to making the highest quality products. But with the games being held in China this year, one expert says the company is trying to lure shoppers beyond Canada.
Still has a relatively small presence in China with just a few dozen stores, but it is trying to build a brand there. The Lululemon brand is not well known in China.
Lululemon also doesn't have a children's clothing line. They are contracted to dress Canada's athletes for 3 more games after this year. Meteorologist Johanna Wagstaffe joins us now with the forecast. And Joe, I feel like your blazer is kind of indicative of what we have now and what's to come.
Yes, some blue sky breaks.
I was going to say a little drizzly.
Yeah, well, you're picking up on both, Anita. I think we've got the drizzle in the forecast, the hope of blue sky. It's one of those ink blot blazers, I think. Take out of it what you will. Let me get you through the current temperatures, though, because we really have a tale of 2 forecasts this week. 7 right now at YVR, so it is fairly mild out there. But yes, drizzle today and drizzle tomorrow. We saw some steadier rain earlier today, and we might see a few more rounds of steadier rain move in tomorrow morning, but generally it is light stuff for Metro Vancouver. You can see the rainfall forecast through to Thursday afternoon. Trace amounts for most of Metro Vancouver in the light green. Darker amounts towards the North Shore and parts of the island. That's really just 5 to 10 millimeters. So not a lot of rain with the incoming system. And it really isn't a full-on incoming system. It's the edge of one. Haida Gwaii, central and northern coastal sections, you're taking the brunt of this rain. High pressure is trying to build in, and it successfully does so for Thursday. Dramatic clear out for the second half of the week when it comes to the precip anyway. But then we'll have to talk about the fog. I'll get there in 1 second. 8 up towards Williams Lake and Prince George tomorrow. You can see the sunshine after the morning showers. Steadier rain towards Prince Rupert and Port Hardy through the morning hours. And Port Hardy, you are getting that steady rain as we speak. Okay, so first half of the week, very different than the second. Notice those temperatures are quite mild beginning Thursday afternoon through Friday. Now, those sunny icons do look enticing. Notice the little fog that rolls in over the sunshine. We will be watching for morning fog for the second half of the week and through the weekend. Anita, this is our second strong high pressure system of the winter. I'll see if I can nail down that fog forecast in the next couple days.
Okay, thanks, Joe.
You're welcome.
They are BC doctors who warn against taking a COVID-19 vaccine. Why they're facing backlash from other physicians in the province. We take you to their provincial tour, starting in Terrace next. Welcome back to CBC Vancouver News. Several BC doctors want the College of Physicians and Surgeons to do more to stop COVID-19 misinformation. They are especially concerned about two of their colleagues who recently toured the province warning against the COVID-19 vaccine. Lindsay Duncombe caught up with the tour in Terrace.
Hi. We're with CBC. We're here for the meeting. Okay.
To enter the Elks Hall in Terrace, BC on this January Tuesday night is to enter an alternate reality.
You notice I've got vaccine, the word vaccine in quotation marks here, because you know it's not a vaccine, right?
The draw is two BC doctors arguing against COVID-19 vaccines. Their presentation has the polish of a TED Talk and the fervor of a tent revival.
I think this is the biggest lie that's ever been told to humanity.
That's Stephen Malthouse, a family physician from Deadman Island. And that's Charles Hoff, a GP from the BC Interior. Both are fully licensed doctors with no official record of discipline from the BC College of Physicians and Surgeons.
And all of the fully vaxxed people are wearing masks. And the COVID rips through there is the clearest evidence that the shots don't work and the masks don't work.
The doctors share misinformation to support their argument that COVID-19 vaccine harms, even kills people. They have held meetings in 14 communities across BC since mid-December. The presentation resonates.
I think it was excellent information. I think it was very informative.
90% of the people are vaccinated, and it's much worse than what it was, right? So
most of my nieces and nephews have been jabbed. And I suspect that within a couple of years, a couple of them will be dead.
We love Terrace.
A new day, a new audience. Here, the media is portrayed as complicit. Our questions, part of a giant cover-up.
Both of your presentations, doctors here, is contrary to the overwhelming public scientific evidence that the vaccine is indeed safe and effective, and I would like you to respond to that.
Yeah, I think that comes a question of what we've taken as scientific and what we've taken as experts.
They're just telling lies or
Dr. Alistair McAlpine is a pediatrician specializing in infectious diseases. He is one of 13 doctors who complained to the College of Physicians and Surgeons about Dr. Hoff spreading misinformation last December. Nothing's happened, at least not publicly.
Lives are at stake. People are being harmed. The public is being harmed. And the fundamental mandate of the college is to protect the public. And in my opinion, they're simply not doing that at the moment. And ongoing silence and inaction in the face of the actions of these physicians is just not acceptable.
Those false diagnoses of COVID, right? Positive PCR.
We know there is an investigation into Dr. Malthouse too, but only because of court documents he's filed. A petition filed in the BC Supreme Court says the College of Physicians and Surgeons instructed Malthouse not to speak on COVID-related topics back in May 2021. Malthouse argues that violated his right to free speech and maintains his statements are based in science.
I think this is also where he's talking about the idea that there's actors playing patients in the ICU.
We asked Professor Timothy Caulfield, who specializes in medical misinformation, to count the false statements we recorded at the Terrace meeting.
I just couldn't believe the degree to which every one of his conclusions, to some degree, was based on misinformation or a conspiracy theory.
And it's not just the road trips prompting investigations. Stephen Malthouse has been linked to the website Enable Air. It's being investigated by the RCMP for offering fraudulent vaccine exemptions.
These are the exemption letters from Stephen Malthouse.
One exemption letter signed by Malthouse made its way to Duncan McIntosh in Hamilton, Ontario. McIntosh owns a sports facility and was checking exemptions from participants. The letter looked suspicious, so he called Malthouse.
And it didn't take him more than 5 seconds to go on about what I should do to get exemptions and how the process worked and which organizations you go to get the exemption and what sort of things you talk about. It was pretty clear that this wasn't legitimate.
He says Malthouse told him exemptions could be obtained on the website.
I asked him how it is that a person in Hamilton would get the exemption, and he said, well, you go to Enable Air and you follow through them, and then he's the one who issues the document after you've made the dealings and the business arrangement with Enable Air. I did report it to the British Columbia College of Physicians, and I never heard anything back. I was fairly disappointed in not even a return phone call or email.
We repeatedly asked the BC College of Physicians and Surgeons for an on-camera interview. It replied, "We are unable to discuss the actions of individual physicians or confirm whether they are being investigated." When we asked if physicians could be suspended on an interim basis while an investigation is ongoing, it said extraordinary action must be necessary to protect the public based on a real risk that cannot be speculative.
If this isn't an extraordinary time, and if these doctors are not directly placing the public at risk, then I don't know what is. And then I think that there would never be a situation where the college would step in and it would then be rendering itself obsolete, in my opinion.
Stephen Malthouse didn't answer our questions about the college investigation.
I think you'll have to ask the college about those investigations that you're referring to. And with regard to renewing our licenses, well, we're both practicing physicians. We both have active licenses right now.
Are you deceiving people, Dr. Hall?
No, I will never deceive people. I do what I do because I love my patients.
It's not just the people who come to see the doctors who hear their message. It's all live streamed on the internet. After a few photos with fans, the doctors get on their bus. It's on to the next town and the next eager audience. Lindsay Duncombe, CBC News, Terrace, British Columbia.
It's an Olympic event that combines arts and sport, the musical minds behind figure skating, and the magic they hope to make on the ice. That's coming up. Okay, at the Olympics, most of the focus is on the athletes, but behind them are a variety of professionals helping them shine. That includes a pair of Quebecers who may not be in Beijing, but their work is certainly being heard. As Kwabina Oduro reports, they've crafted the music for more than 50 athletes competing right now in China.
As Canadians Eric Radford and Vanessa James made their debut in Beijing Sunday evening, Quebecers Hugo Chouinard and Carl Hugo watched on. One of their compositions was used during part of the performance. Radford thanked the two in an Instagram message.
We have developed that relationship and the way we create together, so it's very flattering.
In all, 51 ice dancers and figure skaters will be performing to Chouinard and Hugo's music in Beijing.
It's always a collaboration with athletes, and they are the source of inspiration. So my job is really to bring to life their vision.
The two have worked together for nearly 30 years, creating musical arrangements for athletes from figure skaters to gymnasts, artistic swimmers, and dancers.
I can do a lot just editing and mixing music, but sometimes, I mean, that section that doesn't exist, I mean, Carl will create it, and that is real strength. You can create everything. Sky is the limit with Carl.
This skating choreographer relies on the pair for all his skaters, including one request for something from Adele.
It was like an orchestral version that, went off somewhere else and then came beautifully back, and then Adele started singing again, and it was like, wow.
We can add sound effect to every element.
This coach says music can make all the difference to a performance.
It creates the connection between the athlete, the audience, and the officials. And when the skaters are able to love their music, they're able to deliver emotions.
As for Chouinard and Hugo, the two will be cheering on as athletes and their tunes go for gold. Kwabina Oduro, CBC News, Montreal.
I love this story. Figure skating is my favorite Olympic sport to watch by far. And how cool is that? They are putting together music for athletes from all over the world. But the question is, do the Canadian athletes get the best tunes? I'm not sure we'll ever know the answer to that, but it is what it is. Thanks so much for watching CBC Vancouver News. A reminder, we are on at 3 p.m. during the Olympics on television, on demand, online.